this is a problem here. This spindle in this banister, and it got broke by the kid. So what we're going to do is use wood glue, and we're going to put it on with a brush, okay, on both pieces, the broken here and the broken here. And then we're going to put it back in the original position. We're going to put the top in first, and then we're going to take this, we're going to line it up, and we're going to kind of straighten it out. Now, I don't, by the way, you can wash the brush when you're done, because wood glue is water soluble. I don't like gluing without clamping, but this, being that it's a long piece, well, let's see if we could pull this bottom out. There's usually a nail in there or something. Let's see. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so I'm going to use this little fulcrum here. Okay. And then we want to get these nails out. There's one nail in the bottom here. And there's a couple of nails still in here. So I don't like gluing. These ones I could just nip off. I don't like gluing without clamping, because you really get no strength at all if you don't clamp it in your repair. So maybe I'm going to use a big furniture clamp, because if you put it back together, I mean, it's going to be pretty, and another thing you want to watch out for is if there's any little bent little splinters sticking out, you want to remove them, because when we put this back together, we want to best fit as possible. Oh, this is really going to be a pain. Let's take it out to the truck. Let's move the operation out to the truck. I think I got a furniture clamp outside. I glued up both ends really liberally, because we're going to wipe off the excess glue after we clamp it. I'm going to use this big bar clamp, also known as a furniture clamp, and to squish it the long ways. But then, using these C-clamps and this straight edge, which really could be anything, it doesn't have to be the square. But I'm going to clamp this straight edge with one clamp here and one clamp on the above to keep it straight, to keep it linear. Wipe off the excess glue with a wet rag and let it sit and dry. Okay, so it seems like a lot of trouble, but the alternative is, I'll just show you guys. I got it clamped the long way with the bar clamp. Then I got two clamps on a straight piece of metal on one axis, and then on the other axis I got two clamps and a straight piece of metal. Because I want to get it from both axes. We don't want to bone out from one side to the other. And like I said, the alternative, or like I didn't say, is the alternative is bringing it to a custom wood shop, bring the pieces, or take out a good one and bring it to a custom woodworking shop and have them make a copy. And that's going to be about $200. I've done it before. For one, you know, if you need like 3 or 4, it's going to be like $200 for the first one, and then maybe 60 or 70 for each additional one to get exact copies. So just showing you real quick, if we're looking at it from the end, okay, here's the baluster. I have it clamped from one axis, and then I have clamped from the other axis. Okay, so it's straight. When we take it out of the clamp and the glue is dry, it's going to be straight. Now the crack is a little bit visible, so when the glue is dry, just a little wood filler, although I can't really show it to you, but it's in there. A little wood filler, and then so, you know, let that dry. Light sanding with like some 120 paper, a little primer just on the repair area, and then a little paint to touch it up. Having let it sit overnight to dry, we're going to take a look at it, see if it came straight, and see if it's got any strength to it. Oh, that looks nice and straight. And it looks like it's got a little strength to it. That's good. Although when you get a crack like this in a long round piece of wood, you're really not going to get a lot of strength. If it was like a long crack where we could get a good big glue surface area, it would be stronger than when it started. But alright, so what we're going to do now is lightly sand it, and then we're going to put a little wood filler. These cracks are like mostly filled with glue and stuff, so we're going to put a little wood filler, let that dry, lightly sand again with like some 120, prime this little repair area, and then touch-up paint, and then bring it back to the customer and install it. Some of these chunks of glue, you can kind of get them off with your fingernail, like that, and then just lightly sand. We just want to get the high spots off. We don't want to go too deep. And again, the sandpaper, you want to rip your sandpaper in half and then fold it in thirds is the best way, because then you get one side, 2 sides, and then you got the third side if you need it. It's just easier to hold this way and handle. So I got all the high spots down. That's nice. And there's just a couple of little, like that hole there, wood filler. There's just a couple of little, otherwise the crack is pulled back together from that big long clamp, and those side clamps kept it straight. So we really don't have a lot of work to do at this point. So let's get a little wood filler in those holes. So this is regular old commercial wood filler. That's kind of dried up. See how the stuff in the bottom is. It's all screwed up. The stuff around the edges, I only need a little bit. Just kind of push it in there. Okay, something like that. Just let it dry a couple hours, light sanding, and then again, just primer, the area of the repair, and then we're going to touch up paint. Here's our wood filler all dried up, so we're just going to give it a light sand, and this is 150 paper. And that should do it for the sanding. Now we're going to prime this little spot here. You're going to want to follow the instructions on the primer as far as mixing it and stuff like that. But you'll find that most of this modern primer is dry and ready for a top coat in about an hour. So we're doing our brush strokes with the grain, of course, which is the long ways. And then we're going to let this sit to dry about an hour. And then just touch up the, there's a couple of little scuffs that I'm hitting with primer too, because we're going to paint this whole thing with like a decorator white, I figure is the color. Okay, so now we're just going to sit this to dry. It's got primer on the repair area. Now that primer is nice and dry, we're going to just give it a top coat, touch up the paint. Then it'll be ready for installation. And the way you install these is you put the top in the hole under the banister and push up, and that'll give you enough clearance to put the bottom knob into the hole and then pull it back down. And then you just put like 1 or 2 nails. You can see the old nail hole, and that's at like a 45-degree angle. You would put like 1.5 inch finishing nail at a 45-degree angle, and that just holds it from twisting when it's in there. The strength is from the knob at the bottom and from where it goes in the top. So then it would be done at that point. So we just have some semi-gloss white, and we're just going to touch up our little repair. And I just want to show you guys so I can get this video up. That's it. Alright, a little more paint though, because we're showing through. And again, always go with the grain, which is the long way with these things. Although some little thing like this, you may have to paint it against the grain, but then finish with a couple of long strokes. And if it needs a second coat, it's going to need a second coat to completely cover the repair. But that's basically the whole deal there. Just to show you it's nice and straight. And again, it's nice and strong. So good repair overall.